Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is the Book of Meeple, a show where I devote my time to ranting and raving about board games, but usually more the latter part. This is the second of the two Garfield games that I acquired myself basically at the start of the month. I thought, you know what, these two titles are being talked about, I ought to get them played. And I already did Scar Braids, so thank you for watching that review. This is the Anarchy, and most people would be wondering why I'm actually looking at this game, given that my review for Hadrian's Wall wasn't quite so positive. Well, I say not quite so positive. I think I gave it a 6. At worst, I gave it a 5 and said it was an average game, but I'm fairly certain I might have given it a 6, above average.
I'll give you a piece of
I mean, it's not that bad a rating, right? Come on, guys. But this is effectively Hadrian's Wall Part 2, which is basically to say it's a heavy flippin' right with another theme patched onto it. You know, I didn't really care much about the theme in Hadrian's Wall, and the theme here, yeah, I mean, it works, but it's a flippin' right. The theme kind of means nothing to you while you're doing it. It's basically a case that you've got to defend yourself against oncoming attacks while also making a few attacks on the enemy yourself. And of course, that classic thing of here's two big sheets in front of you full of lots of tiny little boxes that you get to cross out for bonuses here, a bit of column A, a bit of column B. So compared to Hadrian's Wall, do I prefer this one? Or is this one just more of the same? Or could it even be worse?
Yes! Get on with it!
Now, you do get quite a big rulebook with this game, a good 40-odd pages worth. Yes, it's a small rulebook, but yeah, 40 pages devoted to everything from setup to iconography to end of game. Yeah, there's quite a little bit of reading to do, but let me try and summarize it for you. Essentially, you play through 5 rounds. This is tracked on a separate board. You have your own player board, where you will place attack cards above to say what's going to happen to you at the end of the round, but mainly you're going to be playing these path cards underneath your board, which have scoring objectives and give you resources and people for the round, and they will differ between them all. But in classic flip and write style, you effectively have 2 sheets in front of you, and you will be given the resources as described on these cards, which consist of all sorts of different, look, they're leaking everywhere, different meeples of varying colours. So you've got serfs, barons, soldiers, knights, and all sorts. You'll also be given resources, so you've got food and wood and the like, and of course money. But you're kind of doing 2 main things. Firstly, you're crossing off spaces on your board for bonuses, like you would do. But you're preparing yourself for enemy attacks. This is done by this cool little sort of display here, where you've got these dice with stars on them to represent walls and towers, the front door, the moat, etc. And as you cross off bonuses on here, you will level up these defenses to try and defend yourself from these attacks. The attacks essentially come in a deck of cards. They're randomly shuffled and displayed in each round, some face up, face down, so you don't necessarily know what the type, you know the sort of attack you're getting, but not the details of which side it's coming from. And these will be anything from, you know, like ladders and ballistas and arrows and, you know, trebuchets and God knows what else, and they attack different things. You will effectively be crossing off bonuses on your sheets to try and prepare your defenses. Get, you know, soldiers and knights so that they can be deposited around the ramparts in order to defend yourself. Perhaps you want to use some craftsmen to research different defenses and things like boiling oil and rocks and that. Or maybe you just want them to build better walls and towers and level up this little display here. But then of course you've also got, you know, mercenaries and various other people that you could hire with cash. And on your right sheet particularly, you have these leadership tracks for, you know, governance, warcraft, worship and entertainment, which lead on to a selection of little mini games and buildings that you can build that give you more bonuses, again, more money, more food, more wood, more people. It is very much that kind of game. Cross something off here, get something here. You know, we've seen this kind of stuff before. But at the end of the round, you must try and survive against all the different attacks that will come your way via this deck. The more that you fail to do so, the more discontent you get, which is kind of like a negative multiplier at the end. But mainly, hopefully you're going to be passing a lot of these, or passing them all if you can, which again gives you bonus points in some other regard. You can also attack enemy stronghold places here, and the idea is that these basically will be based on the scenario you're playing. They have different attacks values for like what's coming at you, but mainly you'll be able to actually go up and kill one of these places so that you can, you know, get more points and resources that way. And that's kind of how it plays through all 5 rounds. It's just because you've crossed off more things on your sheet, you're going to have more income in the production phase before the round starts. So this combined with the new path card that you end up getting will effectively give you some kind of you'll be getting a bigger leg up each round. Carry on for 5 rounds, total up all your points from various tracks that you've leveled up, the path cards, and take off any discontent you might have left, and then see how you fare against the game. So as I said, you have got quite a lot of stuff in here to read. It's 40 odd pages, and that's not to say the rulebook's bad. In fact, this is actually a sign that their rulebooks are getting better. They've had some problems with, bizarre layouts and the like. This one actually is laid out fairly well. It has some pictorial examples. It has a decent, full example of how defending against the bad guys works. But it is still quite a lot of text. You have a lot to read before you get started into this game, and I kind of would have liked if there was a proper tutorial scenario thrown in. Yeah, you've got like the classic scenario, which basically just uses some basic scenario cards and, keeps the rules in place, and you can even just say, you know what, I don't want to attack any castles, we're just going to play siege mode, which is a slightly simplified version of the game, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it would have been nice if there was actually a walkthrough scenario, or maybe like the first 4 turns of the game so that you can easily see how things work. Suffice to say, you're going to need to read a bit of text though. Or you could just watch Paul Grogan's video. He's done a very good, fairly lengthy tutorial video on the subject, both of which will see you well. It's just that this game is going to require a little bit of an investment of time before you get stuck in. Otherwise, you are literally just going to be crossing off stuff willy-nilly and having no idea what it's good for. The component quality is pretty solid. I mean, you've got wooden components for food and wood, cardboard money, lots of these little Meeples that I've seen in Garfield games and various other ones before, different colours. I particularly like this little display here. You've effectively got like a tile with some indents in it, and these little dice that have stars for numerical values, and you pop them in. It kind of looks like you're building a little fort. This is really neat. Although, with the components in question, yeah, you might as well chuck away a bunch of them. So, like, what have we got here? So we've got 3 other player boards here, and I've got this bag full of all the other different tower pieces and stuff like that, and even this bag here full of all the other cards. Yeah, don't need them.
You're a monster!
I mean, if you thought Hadrian's Wall was solitaire, hold my beer. Yeah, this one is basically a multiplayer solitaire game through and through. Yes, you can play with other players, but what does it friggin' matter? I mean, you are spending most of your time crossing enough stuff on your sheet. This is worse than Scar of Bray in that respect. At least that one had some funkiness you could do with turn order. The only reason you have a multiplayer thing in here is 2 reasons. One, you can basically have a situation where you draw some of these cards and you draft them. That's it. But there's not really a lot to hate draft in this game. It's just a case of which resources do you fancy compared to anybody else. And on top of that, there's a tiny little rule here where I think there's one bit you can cross off where when you normally could look at a face-down attack card, you could help another player do it and you'll get like a point or a cross-off for it. And there's pretty much all the reason you play this multiplayer. I mean, there is no point. All these components, I mean, how much did I pay for all these extra little tower pieces and their little card decks and stuff to play a game which, let's face it, is a solo game. You ask everybody who has this game, and I guarantee you 99% of them are going to respond that they play this solo. This is why you see this on solo Facebook groups. So it's just a bunch of components I don't need. Although on the plus side, it does mean that you're going to have a lot of sheets for yourself. Holy moly, this thing gives you a lot. Yeah, in fact, this is probably the most I've ever seen for any flip and write game. So, on the basis that you will be playing this solo for life, this will last you until the end of time. I'm pretty sure you will die before the sheet pad runs out. It also takes up half the box. Thankfully, everything else still fits in it fine with baggies. You also have a good amount of variety in this game, because apart from having a lot of different paths to victory, do I focus on governance, warcraft, worship, entertainment, a bit of everything? Am I going to research tactics? Do I care more about attacking castles or defending my own, etc.? You've also got a solo campaign book. Need any more proof that this is basically a solo game in disguise? A solo campaign book with about, we got like 20 different scenarios here. I have not played them all. I've played like the first 3, I believe. And essentially, you play it solo and it changes the setup. So different scenario cards, different victory requirements, and maybe a couple of extra little tweaks to the rules. These are really cool, although the problem is that you have to play with the attacking castles thing. I think it mixes and matches. Some of it's siege and some of it isn't. So if you don't like the normal mode, then, well, you're going to have to like it and lump it with the solo campaign book. But it's good. I like these little things where they just tweak the settings a little bit and give you some cool new way to play the game. So this is nice. Again, solo specific, but there's 20 campaign games in here. And it's not like a campaign where you level up stuff as time goes on. It's just 20 different scenarios, even though technically it does phrase them as chapters. But for crying out loud, who's playing this expecting like a fundamental story here? It's just a neat way to vary up the game for solo play. So all good on the variety front. But that's easy enough to achieve with a flip and write. Is the game any good to play? Yes and no. There are some pros, some cons, as with everything. Pros here, though, that feeling you get from a lot of these flip and writes where you cross off one thing, it gives you another, that definitely seemed more apparent in this one than Hadrian's Wall did. And I suppose I should make some comparisons to something like Twilight Inscription as well, which is currently my choice of roll and write heavy at the moment. This one, much like the Twilight Inscription one, has that cool feeling of I cross off this, which gets me that cross off there, which gets me another person, great, and then I could also cross off this, that gets me a knight. That knight can now go and defend this, that's fine, or I'll spend this black craftsman with a piece of wood, right? Cool. That means I can level up the get another wall here. So that wall is now going to be level 3. Gets me a bit of might as well. Oh, that just got me a patron. All good. That happens a lot. You're going to be crossing off a lot of these squares, and even though there are blanks, not everything gets you a reward. A lot of stuff does, and that feeling is infectious when you play these type of games. You don't feel like you're trudging to find the next tiny little bonus. It may appear like that at first, like your first round's not going to feel particularly lucrative, but as you start leveling up some of these little production dots so that you add more to these path cards each round, as you start leveling up these tracks, the bonuses start flowing faster and faster, and it's a good feeling to have that. The question is, are they actually getting you anything useful? Well, that's part of the whole puzzle of the game. It's definitely a very puzzle affair. You're trying to find the most efficient way to get what you need to survive the attacks and to dish them out. In terms of what doesn't work as well, some of it is, well, there's two things I'm not a big fan of. Firstly, I don't actually like the whole attacking castles thing. This feels like a bit of a bolt-on to the game. The game is fun when you're talking about these sheets and defending. The defending's the good fun part, because you see what type of attacks are coming. You don't know 100% of the information. You're trying to build up your defenses and get your knights and soldiers and tactics and stuff. That bit's really cool. But the attacking the castles is just kind of lame. All you do is basically level up a siegecraft research on your board, which is a quarter of the bit you use money for. So if you play siege mode and take that out, then basically a quarter of that little mini game is out of the picture. But all you do is basically have the requirement, spend some food, go attack it, get a bunch of rewards from plunder tiles and some points by leveling up a track. It's pretty resource intensive though to do some of the later ones, and it just feels kind of like a waste of time. But the problem is, if you don't do it, this game hoses you greatly for it. That discontent I mentioned earlier, the more discontent you get, the more negative points you suffer at the end of the game. And you can suffer a good 15, 20 points or something. I've lost count, but lots of little circles. There's a lot of discontent you can get. There is only 9 hearts, or what they call joy, to offset that. 9. And they're all obtained randomly. More on that a bit later. So, when you start suffering discontent, it hurts. And you get discontent from failing to defend yourself. That makes sense. But you also get discontent from not feeding everybody. Again, that makes sense. But you get discontent from not attacking the enemy. Why? Why is that a big deal? So, yeah, we're getting attacked and I can't defend myself. That makes sense. I can't feed my citizens. Of course they're not going to like that. But are all my citizens complete warmongers and they decree that I must go kill everybody in sight? I don't know. But it gets worse, because on this board, you have this little tent token, and particularly in solo mode, you have a rival one that basically just moves one spot every turn. If you are not at the same level as your opponents with those tents, then not only are you last in turn order in order to draft those cards, but in solo play, you literally only draw the top card of the path deck, and that's what you get. Otherwise, you can draw 2 and keep 1. Drawing 2 and keep 1 is not exactly the most amount of mitigation here, but drawing the top card and that's all you get is kind of sucky, because you might just draw something that really doesn't work for you, and it's like, well, that sucks. Oh, I'm going for these particular things on these sheets, and then I draw one that says, right, your final, how many completed knights training have you done? Well, none, because I wasn't doing any knights training at all. Well, that's the one you've got. Oh, great. And it forces you to do all this attacking the castle thing, because if you leave it like that, you also lose discontent for every single castle above you on the track that you didn't go and capture. So you have to go and do it at times. Otherwise, your points are just going to be crippled. And I hate that the game forces me into that aspect. You've already got me defending the castle. Why do I have to now go attack others? So you could play siege mode. The problem is, siege mode doesn't gel with a lot of these solo scenarios. So again, that doesn't necessarily work out. The other thing that I'm not the biggest fan of is this little deck of cards. It's called domain cards, and basically it's got lots of little mini-game rows on it. The reason being is that pretty much, I would say, well, everything in the entertainment section pretty much, and some of the worship section here for the little mini-games you do, is dependent on getting the resources, which, takes time and effort, and then crossing off the space and drawing a set number of these cards and seeing randomly whether you succeed or not. And there's all different varieties of it. You're training different weapon types. You need to get males and females to mate at the St. Valentine's Festival. I mean, as you do.
Oh my.
You're trying to satisfy Michaelmas? I have no idea. I barely read the history here.
You uncultured swine!
It's basically a mini game where you draw these cards, get numbers, and you try and get numbers to add up to values, and it gets you random, gets you stuff, and it's like, okay, that's weird, it's random. You got Lammas down here, whatever that is, and that's basically flip 2 cards and see whether you get coloured flags, and if you cross them off, you get some joy or some loyalty bonuses, and it's just. These mini-games here, particularly in the entertainment section, just feel more like lotteries. It's like little lottery machines, it's like, right, I am defending my castle against the enemy, here's all my people, here's my cool little castle and stuff like that. Here's all the different leadership roles I'm doing that's getting me to build buildings and stuff. All of this kind of links together. And then you get to the entertainment section, and it's like, this is the casino, where you get to play slots. It's like playing Grand Theft Auto, and you've gone through the main campaign, you've done all these really cool side missions, but then you play Grand Theft Auto Online and you realise it's just one big casino with microtransactions. It's like, well, what? And the entertainment section's kind of weird, because sometimes you'll whiff on a lot of these things you do, and if you do, well, you've just wasted precious time and resources down here and not got what it is you need, whereas everything else in the game is, you cross this off, you get that thing. It's not randomised. And the drawing of the path cards, again, if you've only got one to draw of, is a random affair. I don't get why it's done randomly. Why couldn't these have been puzzly things as well? Or certainly had it less swingy, because you could have the brew house and Michaelmas here, where you're trying to get specific numbers or specific symbols to brew beer, and you could flip over 2 cards here, 2 cards here, 2 cards there, and still not get what you need. It's very swingy as to whether you get ultra lucky with this or not. But those are the main 2 blemishes. The rest of the game is good fun. It is fun to cross off these boxes, get the different combos and different resources as they come through. You got a good amount of variety. There's a lot of different paths you could pick. Am I going to go full-on production, full-on defense, full-on covenants, warcraft, whatever? And I have tried some different ways, build all the mints, so that you get loads of money and then you spend that on all your people. I've tried upping production to silly levels so that every round I get so much stuff to play with, and I've tried one the other day where I tried to level up a bunch of tactics and use them as my primary defense. Although winning this game is not easy. I mean, I got 65 in my first game. The solo book, or solo rulebook, the main rulebook, claims that you can get up to 100 plus. How the frickin' hell do you get 100 plus in this game? I mean, hell, just trying to get 80 plus is hard enough. That requires you to max out most of your path cards, have pretty much no discontent at the end of the game, and almost max out all 4 of the main victory point tracks that you have. That's a tall order, guys. I mean, seriously. It may be doable, and I'm sure there's probably experts out there who have played this game 50 times and somehow managed to master that, but it's going to be tricky enough to do, and on top of that, a lot of that is going to be dependent on which cards you draw out of here, what battle cards come out of here, and particularly what the entertainment deck likes to throw at you in terms of a bit of luck here and there. So, you know, the game is fine. It's a solid game, and I would say it is better than Hadrian's Wall easily. Like, I've got no reason to play Hadrian's Wall if this exists. This one is better, full stop. This one kills the other one. But it's still not amazing. I still prefer Twilight Inscription overall as a game, and I must admit, I hate the fact that this is a random element that I have to contend with its effects, and I don't like the attacking castles bit, but I'm forced to do a lot of the attacking castles bit. It's not that, oh, the attacking castles bit is there, but if you choose not to do it, it's fine. I mean, I could ignore the entertainment section the entire game if I wanted to, and focus on everything else. It doesn't penalise me for doing it. That bit, though, does penalise me, so I am forced to care about it, even though it's one of the weaker aspects of the game. Why couldn't it have just focused on these two sheets, the battle defense, and building up this little cool display? Just that. You could have streamlined the game a bit more. This kind of just feels like an afterthought. Like, how many more mechanics can I shove in here? Much like some of these entertainment mini games feel like a bit of an after effect. I mean, seriously, Lammas, you're flipping cards to see if you get coloured flags. We're defending the keep from people trying to kill us at the moment. That just feels like a, I don't know, I'm brainstorming, I'm really running out of ideas, guys. Flags, yeah, let's get flags, that works, you know. Although if you're in the UK, that's a whole different story. And yeah, it's a fine game. It's better than Hadrian's Wall, but still not amazing for me. You know, this one gets a pretty high 6 out of 10. You know, I don't think it's enough for me to go 7 out of 10. I think there's going to be some fans for this game, but, you know, if you're not really into heavy flipping rights and stuff, I don't think you should try this one. If the theme doesn't really mean anything here, it's just a puzzle game, and it is long for a puzzle game, and I already have Twilight Inscription.
Kill him.
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Don't forget to check out the rest of the content. I've done Scar of Bray, as I said. If I get time before Essen, I might be able to get the review for Chancellor, whatever it's called. Hang on, let me get the game out. This one. Yeah, I might be able to get a review of this one out before Essen, but no guarantees. There's not a lot of time. Essen is literally in a few days' time, and there's quite a bit to do. But if you are going to Essen, then by all means, shake my hand, say hi, come visit me on the Dranda Games booth now and again when I'm there demoing. Come play Jackpot, that's what I'm going to be showing off. But yeah, I hope to see a bunch of you at Essen. But if you're not going, then by all means, I'll keep you updated with Instagram posts, and there'll be more videos when I get back, when I'm talking about a lot of the cool stuff that I've grabbed from the convention. And of course, the podcast will resume after Essen when I can talk about my experiences there. So take care, and remember, regardless of whether you think you're going to be able to play this 50 million times before you get to perish of this mortal coil, it's still only a game. So take care, bye for now, and maybe plant a couple of trees.